What would horror movies be without weapons? Well, Freddy, Michael and Jason would have to get their hands a whole lot dirtier, that's for sure, and one can only imagine the weirdly entertaining Fight Club tangent or the hand-to-hand stuff would eventually devolve into. It's true that outside of paranormal subgenres, horror loves to spotlight all sorts of gnarly weaponry for killers to creatively dispatch their victims, and of course for resourceful characters to exact their bloody vengeance. Now, really, we aren't expecting ultra-realism when it comes to these things, especially from movies that pride themselves on turning bodies into human paste in as ridiculous a fashion as possible. In each of these cases, though, the filmmakers clearly felt like it was worth sacrificing the physical authenticity of what we know to be true for an awesome, crowd-pleasing kill. And they were right to do so. But even so, we're going to take a look at the difference between movie magic and reality tragic, just to really emphasize quite how ridiculously over the top these excellent weapons are. Enjoy! I am the Blacksmith, Ash from WhatCulture Horror, and these are 10 times horror movies got weapons wrong. 10. Microwaves can't explode human heads. The Last House on the Left. Pretty much the biggest and most memorable moment in 2009's remake of The Last House on the Left is the climactic scene in which the villainous Krug has his head placed inside a modified microwave, and is left as the thing is turned on, resulting in his noggin exploding like a bloody baked potato. Needless to say, this doesn't make sense at all. Even if you make exceptions that the microwave could be fixed up to turn on with the door open, the sheer number of orifices present in the human skull, like the nose, mouth, ears, would prevent a microwave from building up sufficient pressure to make a human head forcefully explode. It would cook and burn instead, if you're wondering, which is still pretty rank. There's absolutely no question that the microwave would kill Krug, but the outrageously gory fate he was afforded in the movie is a pure exaggeration of what microwaves are actually capable of, sadly. 9. Knives don't work that way. Halloween. The Halloween franchise is best characterized by Spectre-like stalker Michael Myers relentlessly pursuing his targets with a large kitchen knife. And though it might seem relatively difficult to make death by knife unrealistic, this series has periodically managed it. In the classic 1978 original, there's a memorable sequence where Myers kills poor Bob Sims by literally pinning him to a door with his knife. Even if you can accept that Myers is strong enough to get the knife all the way through the thick door, the physics of a knife being able to support the weight of an adult man's body just aren't real. The knife would fall out of the door almost immediately. Myers' knife also showed itself to have quasi-magical properties in the 8th film when he uses it to cut Jen's head clean off with a single casual stroke. Again, no matter Myers' strength, there is just no way for the knife's blade to be sharp enough to produce such a swift and precise cut. I mean, we've all seen Forged in Fire, Knife or Death, and all of this is without going into that one time Myers infamously stabbed a woman to death with a shotgun. 8. Liquid nitrogen cannot shatter a person's face. Jason X. One of the most iconic kills in the history of the horror genre is surely the incredible liquid nitrogen death from Jason X, where Jason Voorhees attacks scientist Adrienne, dunks her head in a vat of the cold stuff, and then smashes the frozen remnants on the counter, shattering her face into tiny bloody fragments. Fans have inquired enough about the realism of the scene that Mythbusters themselves even attempted to recreate it, using a number of synthetic and animal substitutes for a human head. Ultimately, they found that the film's depiction of liquid nitrogen as a viable weapon was hugely exaggerated, as even submerging a pig's head for a full 15 minutes couldn't cause it to shatter when hit with a large hammer. More to the point, it takes far more than a few seconds of contact with liquid nitrogen to do any real damage, let alone turn someone's face into a popsicle. Then again, this is a movie where Jason is literally tackled to Earth from space at the end, so realism was clearly never their goal. I don't really know what I'm achieving here aside from killing dreams, but here you go. 7. Old Painless Is Too Heavy for a Human to Carry. Predator, aka the most testosterone-fueled horror movie ever made, is dubbed so in large part due to the presence of Jesse Ventura's Blaine, a tobacco-chewing badass who hasn't got time to bleed and proudly carries an M134 minigun with him at all times, which he dubs Old Painless. The gun is also handled by Mac following Blaine's death. But no matter the operator, the simple truth is that no living human being is physically able to single-handedly hold and shoot one of these things. In reality, the gun is actually mounted on a fixed object like a helicopter or car, because with its ability to fire thousands of rounds per minute, there's simply no practical way for a person to carry the combined weight of the gun, thousands of rounds of ammo, and the battery needed to fire the damn thing. This proves especially noticeable during the iconic deforestation scene, where Mac fires the gun continually for around a minute while miraculously not producing a pile of several thousand bullet casings. 6. Barbed wire can't cause instant dismemberment. Final Destination 2. Who doesn't love a good dismemberment death in a horror film? While the likes of Cube and Resident Evil have proven there need not be a direct correlation between realistic dismemberment and entertaining dismemberment, Final Destination 2 arguably took this relation to cartoonish levels with one of its climactic deaths. Near the end of the film, an explosion is triggered which improbably catapults a barbed wire fence into the path of stoner Rory, quickly cutting off his arm before slicing the rest of his body into 3 parts. It is a great death scene for sure, but completely ridiculous. There's no physical way for thin barbed wire to travel with the force necessary at this speed to slice through the human body like butter. That's not to say Rory wouldn't be injured, but the barbed wire would ultimately snap rather than effortlessly pass through his body. 5. The literally impossible codpiece revolver. From Dusk Till Dawn. From Dusk Till Dawn is a ludicrously entertaining and shamelessly silly horror classic. Yet even in a movie where a sleazy strip club finds itself overrun by vampires, the most ridiculous thing just might be that gun. When biker sex machine, horror makeup legend Tom Savini is confronted by a fellow bar patron, his codpiece suddenly flips over, revealing a distinctly phallic-looking revolver underneath, complete with testicular bullet cylinders. It is a hilarious gag because, haha, penis, but the film never elaborates on the actual mechanics of the gun, presumably because there is no conceivable way for it to make sense. For starters, even if we accept the dubious prospect that it is fired by pelvic thrusts, which we see in Machete Kills, then how is it even loaded? And isn't there a major risk of penile and/or vaginal damage to the user per the gun's recoil? Asking the important questions here, clearly. 4. Blenders can't penetrate bone. You're next. Your Next features a downright grisly kill in a downright grisly third act, where well-trained protagonist Erin kills Felix by smashing a blender over his head, digging the blade into his skull, and then turning the thing on. In the scene, a fountain of blood quickly leaks from Felix's head, with the implication that his brain has been effectively turned to mush. It makes for a stomach-churning kill, though it's also a massive exaggeration of a blender's potential lethality. To begin with, most modern blender blades can't even deal well with frozen fruit or vegetables, and while they're certainly capable of grinding up smaller animal bones, the idea of a blender penetrating a 7mm thick human skull so efficiently is pretty ridiculous. While jamming the blender blade into someone's head could certainly cause a traumatic injury, there is no chance you'd be able to get it deep enough to turn their brain to Swiss cheese. Not to mention the resistance a human brain situated inside a skull would put up against the blender blades. Sure, not all blenders are created equal, but there is a hard limit. 3. A bear trap on a chain is a terrible projectile. The Cabin in the Woods. Zombie redneck torture Buckner family member Matthew uses a chain to launch a broken bear trap at his chosen target in the hope of embedding it in their back in the cabin in the woods, rendering them helpless as he goes in for the kill, as happens to poor Jules in the film. It's a nice idea in theory, except that even if you're strong enough to hurl a bear trap, there is virtually no chance of it picking up enough velocity in midair to successfully embed itself in a victim's body, especially when they're most likely running away. And then to pull it back whilst it stays in there, woof! Not gonna happen. Bear traps are dangerous less for the sharpness of their teeth and more for the spring-powered mouth which forces both sides of the trap to clamp down together, which can't happen with only one half. Honestly, a chained bear trap would be a lot more effective as a bludgeoning weapon than one intended to actually immobilize targets. Not that I'm complaining here, of course. I've gone on a lot about my love for this movie. I'm just looking for another excuse to talk about it, really. 2. Lawnmowers get clogged up really easily. Brain dead. In the improvised weapon stakes, there are few films more satisfying than Peter Jackson's 1992 splatterfest classic, Brain Dead. The film climaxes with protagonist Lionel facing off against the zombie horde with a lawnmower, holding it blade end up to hack the ravenous monsters to pieces. It is a deliriously gory masterpiece of a sequence, with limbs flying in every direction and a literal geyser of gore soaking the room in the red stuff. And perhaps unsurprisingly, it is completely unrealistic. Though it's not uncommon for people to be killed in lawnmower accidents, there's simply no way that Lionel will be able to continually operate a lawnmower that is so thoroughly covered in blood and gore. Considering your average household lawnmower can get clogged up whilst doing basic gardening, this thing would clearly stop working after the first few cuts, probably leaving the poor guy to be overcome and quickly devoured. But that's no fun, is it? 1. TV screens don't smash that easily. Scream. Wes Craven's iconic slasher satire Scream ends with one of the film's two killers, Stu, being 86'd in spectacularly over-the-top fashion, with final girl Sydney pushing a TV on top of his head, the impact shattering the screen and promptly electrocuting Stu to death. Anyone who knows anything about old-school CRT televisions can appreciate they present a significant risk of electrocution if carelessly tinkered around with. So, it's not entirely unrealistic that Stu could actually be electrocuted to death by coming into contact with the TV's broken screen. But what is not on about this scene is that the screen breaks so damn easily. There's just no way that a CRT TV screen from 1996 would break after being pushed off a short ledge and then boinking off a human head. Sure, there's a strong chance it causes fatal blunt force trauma to Stu regardless, but considering that TVs of the period could withstand bricks being thrown at them with considerably greater force, there's just no way Stu's head ends up being exposed to the guts of the TV in the first place. And that's our list. What other horror movies got weapons wrong? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. I've been Ash over on social media at Ash Millman, and this has been WhatCulture. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and come back again soon for some more spine-tingling horror content. Thanks for watching.